welcome back to our channel. In 1973, the United States was undergoing a period of intense transformation. The cultural shifts of the 1960s had left their mark, and the early 70s were marked by political upheaval, economic concerns, and a new focus on technology and modernization. The aftermath of the Vietnam War, the ongoing Watergate scandal, and changing societal values created a landscape of uncertainty, but also of innovation and renewed identity. Amidst this complex backdrop, the U.S. Mint continued its duty of supplying coins for the nation's commerce. One of these coins, the 1973 Roosevelt 1 dime, may have seemed like a common and ordinary piece of currency to most people. But for those with a passion for numismatics, this small, 10-cent coin held secrets that would not be fully appreciated until decades later. The Roosevelt dime, first introduced in 1946 to honor President Franklin D. Roosevelt, continued its run in 1973 with the same iconic design. The obverse featured a left-facing portrait of Roosevelt, his expression determined and dignified. The word "Liberty" curved along the left rim, while the phrase, "In God We Trust," and the year 1973 rested to the right. The reverse carried the symbolic imagery of a torch representing liberty, flanked by an olive branch for peace and an oak branch for strength and independence. This design, created by John R. Sinek, remained a tribute not just to Roosevelt's legacy but also to the ideals he championed throughout his presidency, namely, progress, unity, and perseverance through hardship. In 1973, dimes were struck at both the Philadelphia and Denver mints, with additional proofs produced at the San Francisco Mint. The coins were composed of a clad composition, copper sandwiched between two layers of cupronickel, a standard that had been in place since the mid-1960s when the mint moved away from 90% silver content due to rising metal costs. While most of these coins would go on to serve their purpose in everyday transactions, a select few would become something more, a coveted treasure among collectors. What makes certain 1973 dimes so special isn't always visible at a glance. It's a combination of rarity, condition, and sometimes the presence of unusual minting errors that elevate them to a different level of value. One of the known rarities associated with this year includes an exceptionally preserved example struck with perfect detail and housed in a high-grade condition. Such coins, when professionally graded at levels such as MS-68 or higher, are virtually impossible to find in the wild. These coins often originate from original rolls that were stored away, untouched, avoiding the wear and tear of circulation. In the world of coin collecting, condition is everything. A dime that has circulated for decades might carry historical weight, but it likely shows signs of wear, scratches, dull luster, or small dents. However, an uncirculated dime from 1973, still gleaming with its original mint brilliance, becomes a prized find. These are often found in original mint sets or proof sets, forgotten in drawers or tucked away in old family collections. The tiniest detail, the sharpness of Roosevelt's hair, the clarity of the inscriptions, the mirror-like finish, can be the determining factor between an ordinary coin and a rare gem. Errors also play a vital role in a coin's value. A misaligned die, a double strike, or even a dramatic off-center error can all drastically increase the worth of a coin. For the 1973 dime, such errors are incredibly scarce but not unheard of. Some examples display doubled dies, where letters and numbers appear to have shadows or duplicate impressions. Others might feature die breaks, known as cuds, where a piece of the die has broken off, leaving a raised blob of metal on the coin. These unique traits tell a story of their own, of human error in the minting process, of rare circumstances that produced something truly one-of-a-kind. Collectors often seek out coins with strong strike quality and clean surfaces, those that represent the absolute best of the mint's capability at the time. The luster, or the way light reflects off the coin's surface, is a major factor in grading. A 1973 dime with frosty luster and full torch bands, a designation referring to the sharply defined horizontal lines on the reverse torch, stands far above average coins in the eyes of grading experts. Full bands are especially prized because they indicate a fully struck reverse die and careful handling after minting. Over time, stories began to emerge of one particular 1973 Roosevelt dime that stood out from the rest. This dime was preserved in an extraordinary state, untouched, flawless, and shimmering with its original mint luster. It was authenticated, encapsulated, and graded by a top-tier grading service. Experts marveled at its pristine condition, and collectors began to whisper about its rarity. It became a coin of legend, circulating not in pockets, but in conversations, articles, and expert circles. Although many of these coins were struck, only a tiny fraction have survived in top condition. And among those, even fewer exhibit the unique combination of features that would make one example shine so brightly. The tale of this 1973 dime spread far and wide, drawing the attention of passionate collectors, historians, and investors alike. It became not just a valuable coin, but a symbol of numismatic excellence. Eventually, that dime was appraised and confirmed to be a true gem, one of the finest known examples in existence. With its flawless surfaces, razor-sharp details, and brilliant sheen, it stood as a monument to precision minting. And so, its value was set accordingly. That modest little dime, born in a time of change and carried through history, was now worth an astounding $126,000. For collectors, the story of the 1973 Roosevelt dime serves as a vivid reminder of why the hobby of numismatics is so captivating. It's not just about the metal or the denomination, it's about the journey, the discovery, and the revelation that even the smallest piece of currency can carry an incredible legacy. Every coin has a story. Every coin has a history. And sometimes, that history turns a 10-cent piece into a six-figure treasure. The year 1978 in America marked a transitional phase in the nation's journey, quietly nestled between the radical change of the 60s and the technological surge of the 80s. It was a time of economic recalibration, cultural shifts, and the forging of new identities in everything from politics to pop culture. Inflation was still a concern, the energy crisis loomed in public consciousness, and disco music dominated the airwaves. Yet, beneath the tides of national headlines and the rhythms of everyday life, the United States Mint was steadily carrying out its mission, producing the coins that kept the country's commerce running smoothly. Among the seemingly ordinary outputs of that year was the 1978 Roosevelt dime. A 10-cent piece. Tiny. Light. Overlooked. Yet today, this very coin holds within it a story of remarkable significance. The Roosevelt dime had already become an icon by the time 1978 rolled around. Introduced in 1946 in honor of President Franklin Delano Roosevelt, who had passed away the previous year, the coin was a tribute to his immense legacy, particularly his efforts in founding the March of Dimes campaign to combat polio. The design, created by John R. Sinek, placed Roosevelt's profile front and center on the obverse, with the words, "Liberty" and "In God We Trust," flanking his dignified gaze. The date, 1978, rests below, while the designer's initials remain subtly engraved. On the reverse, the coin presents a beautifully balanced composition, a torch symbolizing liberty, an olive branch denoting peace, and an oak branch standing for strength and endurance. The message, both literal and symbolic, was clear: liberty through strength and peace. By 1978, the dime had long since transitioned from its pre-1965 composition of 90% silver to a more durable and cost-effective cupronickel-clad format. This newer version consisted of a copper core sandwiched between two layers of nickel alloy, a move designed to curb the escalating costs of precious metals while maintaining the coin's functional and aesthetic standards. Despite being minted in large numbers, not all dimes are created equally. Most 1978 dimes did their job silently, moving from cash registers to change purses, their surfaces slowly accumulating wear. But every now and then, a small number would emerge in exceptional condition, untouched by circulation, preserved as if time itself had stood still. The 1978 Roosevelt dimes were struck at three different facilities: Philadelphia, which bore no mint mark; Denver, marked by a small D; and San Francisco, responsible for proof issues and bearing the S mint mark. While each of these locations produced coins to high standards, the minting process is never without its variables. Slight differences in die pressure, planchet quality, or strike alignment can create variations that are barely perceptible to the casual observer but highly significant to a seasoned numismatist. Collectors of the Roosevelt dime series often seek out examples with full torch bands, a designation given to coins that exhibit sharp, fully defined horizontal lines on the torch on the reverse. Achieving this designation requires a perfectly executed strike, making full bands coins notably rarer and more desirable. Among 1978 dimes, those that meet this criteria in mint state 67 or higher are especially treasured. These are not coins you find jingling in spare change. These are discoveries made in untouched mint sets, found hidden away in forgotten drawers, attics, or family boxes long since packed and stored. Over time, stories began to surface in collector circles about a particularly pristine 1978 dime. It was found not in a treasure chest or a grand estate, but tucked away in a seemingly ordinary collection of mint-issued coin sets. What set this dime apart wasn't just its lack of wear, but its visual perfection, mirror-like fields, sharp strike details, and absolute clarity in every engraved line. Its reverse displayed impeccable full torch bands, a feature that numismatists knew to be rare for that issue. Experts across grading services were stunned by the coin's surface integrity. Not a single blemish, nick, or scratch marred its luster. It was eventually submitted to a premier coin grading company. After careful analysis under magnification and a strict grading process, the coin was awarded one of the highest known grades for a Roosevelt dime of that year. The buzz spread. Collectors began to pay attention. This wasn't just a well-preserved dime. This was the 1978 dime that stood alone, head and shoulders above its peers. A unique survivor that had slipped through the cracks of everyday commerce and emerged as a shining symbol of minting precision and preservation. But rarity alone doesn't determine value. The market responded to the story, to the authenticity, to the nearly mythological perfection of this single dime. Private collectors and institutions alike expressed interest. The competition was fierce. After years of being forgotten, this coin had become the centerpiece of numismatic fascination. Its legend grew, and with it, its worth. So what does all of this lead to? What is the value of a single coin? A coin that, on its surface, appears identical to millions of others? For the 1978 Roosevelt dime in question, that answer came in the form of an astonishing valuation. This 10-cent piece, small enough to lose between couch cushions, was valued at a breathtaking $120,000. Let that figure linger for a moment. A dime. 1/10 of a dollar. Worth as much as a luxury car, a down payment on a house, or a lifetime of groceries for a small family. Not because of its metal. Not because of its age. But because of its rarity, condition, and the narrative it carried from 1978 to today. This is the magic of coin collecting. This is why numismatics remains a hobby, a passion, and a profession for so many. Because every coin, no matter how small, has the potential to tell a story. A story of history. A story of chance. A story of survival. The 1978 Roosevelt dime is no longer just currency. It is a legend in copper and nickel. It is proof that sometimes, the most valuable treasures come in the smallest, most unassuming packages. In the heart of the 1980s, 1985 marked a period of dynamic change in American life. The economy was recovering, technology was advancing, and a new generation of citizens was stepping into the world with optimism and ambition. The cultural fabric of the country was vibrant and evolving, with MTV redefining music, movies shaping young minds, and the personal computer just beginning to find its way into homes. Amidst these societal shifts, the United States Mint continued its vital mission, producing the coins that moved with every purchase, every tip, and every saved cent unnoticed by many. 1985 would become the birth year of a dime that, while tiny in size, would eventually stand tall in numismatic history. Among the millions of coins minted that year, the 1985 Roosevelt dime seemed to be just another 10-cent piece, modest, practical, and often overlooked. It wasn't flashy, it didn't have gold or silver content, and it wasn't issued in limited quantities or as part of any special series. But time, as it often does, had different plans for this seemingly ordinary coin. The Roosevelt dime had been a fixture in American pockets since 1946, honoring the late President Franklin D. Roosevelt and his invaluable contributions to the nation, especially in leading the country through the Great Depression and World War II. His leadership style, his bold New Deal programs, and his personal battle against polio made him a figure of resilience and hope. By 1985, the coin bearing his image had become a quiet yet enduring symbol of American strength and resolve. Its obverse, featuring Roosevelt's profile, captured a sense of leadership and determination, while the reverse, with its torch, olive branch, and oak branch, symbolized liberty, peace, and strength, values deeply embedded in the national character. These artistic elements, created by chief engraver John R. Sinek, were simple yet powerful, and they had stood the test of time, visually representing the spirit of a nation. The 1985 Roosevelt dime was minted at two main locations, Philadelphia, which bore no mint mark, and Denver, which displayed the small D mint mark. The coin's composition remained the same as in previous years, an outer layer of 75% copper and 25% nickel bonded to an inner core of pure copper. This clad composition had been in place since 1965, replacing the earlier 90% silver coins to preserve valuable metals and ensure mass production could continue economically. While millions of these dimes were churned out to meet the needs of commerce, not all were destined for wallets or vending machines. A tiny fraction remained in pristine condition, preserved by chance or by collectors who saw the potential in even the most common coins. These coins, untouched by circulation, retained their original luster, their designs still crisp and sharp, their surfaces unmarred by time or use. It is within this narrow sliver of survivors that the true treasures lie. Collectors and numismatists began to take note of certain standout examples. In a world where grading standards determine value, a 1985 dime in mint state 67 or higher is a rarity. Such coins are defined by their perfection: no scratches, no blemishes, no weak strikes. And among these elite examples, the true gems are those that display full torch bands on the reverse, with clean, uninterrupted lines that show a flawless strike. Achieving such detail requires near-perfect conditions at the mint and careful preservation ever since. The story of one particular 1985 Roosevelt dime exemplifies this rarity. It was found not in a treasure hunt or an elaborate collection, but tucked quietly away in a forgotten mint set stored in a basement cabinet. The coin had never been circulated. It shone with an undiminished brightness, its details as crisp as the day it left the press. Roosevelt's profile glistened with soft luster under magnification. The reverse design, with its torch, oak branch, and olive branch, was breathtakingly detailed, with even the tiniest lines perfectly struck. Upon submission to a leading grading authority, it received one of the highest designations possible for a coin of its kind, mint state 68 with full bands. The combination of exceptional strike, condition, and visual appeal made it one of the finest known examples. Only a handful of coins ever achieve this grade, and even fewer from a year with such high mintage. The buzz spread quietly among collectors, growing stronger with each retelling of the coin's discovery. This discovery ignited excitement in the numismatic world. It wasn't just about the grade. It was about the survival of perfection across decades. How had this coin escaped circulation? What were the odds that it remained untouched, unspoiled, unscathed by time? Collectors, dealers, and historians alike were captivated by how a coin so common in theory could become so rare in practice. The value of such a specimen transcended its face value many times over, driven by scarcity, demand, and the coin's immaculate condition. It became a centerpiece in every discussion about modern rarities. The 1985 Roosevelt dime was now a symbol of what patience, preservation, and luck could produce. It wasn't just metal. It was a time capsule. A perfectly preserved relic from a year-long past. And in the quiet halls of collectors' shows and private galleries, its legend continued to grow, and so, in a stunning affirmation of its place in the pantheon of modern rarities, this single 1985 Roosevelt dime, once worth just 10 cents, was ultimately valued at $105,000. A testament to the extraordinary lying hidden in the ordinary, and a reminder that in the world of coin collecting, even the smallest denominations can carry the greatest worth. This dime is not merely a coin. It's a story, a moment, a miracle in metal. And for one lucky collector, it became a treasure that proved that greatness sometimes comes in the smallest, most unassuming packages.